BBC Radio Berkshire showing a little respect with erasure. A very good afternoon to you. I'm Sue. Hope we find you well today. Fascinating subject now. We're talking about midlife crises, or more importantly, embracing a midlife career change. But how do you switch jobs with no experience? We also saw last week how Donald Trump won the presidential election without previously holding public office. But how would you go about switching into a new industry with no experience of that industry? So we're joined to talk about this and so much more by career expert Jonathan Blain, who's nipped up the road from Henley to join me in the studio. So I'm 51. I'll be right up front with you, Jonathan. It's a difficult time to think about changing career, embracing something new, but you would say it's a great idea.
Well, I think it's something that all of us had to face. I think that it used to be, I'm not a dissimilar age to you, a little bit older, but, when we were young, you'd think you'd go into a career and that was it.
Yeah, the police was a job for life, the army was a job for life.
Yeah, I started off in the Royal Navy. Yeah. Now, wherever you are, there's uncertainty, and the world is changing so fast that we're all needing to reinvent ourselves and to do different things. Things that were offered jobs for life are no more, and it's like a little bit of a shock. And we don't just need multiple jobs in our career; we need multiple careers. And I just think it used
to be the case that they said all of us had 3 careers in us, didn't they? In the old days, most people had an expectation of 3 jobs, but now it can be much more, can't it?
Oh, it can be like an infinite number of careers. But I think some people, will look at this in a very negative context. I think there's a very interesting thing about our careers, that they really are a part of our identity. When we meet somebody, we say, what do you do for a living? It's like, and we wear that, I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm an engineer, I'm a nurse, I'm an accountant. Yeah. It becomes like an important part of our identity. And yet actually, our identities are more than that. And, sometimes, breaking free of the past is a chance for a new start and a new beginning. And I think everyone presumes that when they have to have a change, that it's going to be a change for the worse, that they're going to maybe, it's too late for them, that they're too old. But I just feel life's what you make it.
Absolutely. I was lucky enough to take a step back and enjoy my children when they were younger. But it was one of the things I found very difficult, as you say. It's like when people say, what do you do? Somehow saying I'm a full-time mother seemed inadequate, which is ridiculous. It's possibly the most important job I will ever do. But to help me now, look, how do you go about changing? I've managed to come back from having the children and I'm loving BBC Radio Berkshire, and I'm not being paid to say that. But how do people go about shifting if they want to change and they want a different career, to go a different way, or they've been made redundant and they have to?
Well, I think that there's a very nice quote from Buddha that I really like, and it's your work is to find your work and then give yourself to it with all your heart. And I think there's this idea that we all have like our life's work within us. There are certain work that excites us, that energizes us, that we're good at. And so I just feel that the starting point when you're in one of these situations of change is to actually go on an inner journey to work out who you are. And I think the ironic thing is we've all been us all our lives. You've been you for 51 years. Arguably nobody could know you better, and yet it's remarkable. We see ourselves from the inside out, not from the outside in. We don't see the strengths, the talent, the magnificence that lies within us. And I just feel that the way of shortcutting that process is to do a raft of assessments. And you saw me walk into the studio here with this enormous folder of assessments.
It's 3 inches thick.
Yeah,
4 inches thick.
It's just incredible.
And that's for one person?
That's just one person. That's mine.
Oh, wow.
So I've really become an expert in how to work out who it is that you really are. And I just think
it's all sounding dangerously American, this, isn't it? Because we're not good in Britain about shouting about our strengths. We're terribly modest and terribly, I had the chairman of Reckitt and Coleman in this morning doing an interview about peppermint farming. I had to weasel out of him that the surname was connected to Coleman. What a fantastic thing. Yeah. We don't shout about it, do we, in this country?
No, I don't think we do. But the interesting thing is that all of our strengths and weaknesses have like equal opposites. So things that we might see ourselves about ourselves as good in a different situation could be bad. So, for example, I might see myself as being very energetic, very go-getting, make things happen, and I would see that as entirely positive.
Yeah.
But to somebody else on a bad day, it could come across as bullying, domineering, and arrogant.
Yeah.
And never in a million years would I ever, imagine that I might be portraying those things. And I just think that every time we have a strength, it's got an equal and opposite weakness. So we shouldn't be too hung up of going, oh, I'm not very good at something, or I'm bad at something else, because it's all about being in the right place for you.
And also knowing what you're good at. I mean, that's surely, I quite fancy the idea of being an astronaut. It's never going to happen, is it? So, how many skills do we need to know how to resell into a new career, if you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's one of these things that you can't imagine. I can imagine, you just sort of listening to me, all the listeners, out there listening to me saying, well, you've got to find out who it is that you really are and what you've got. These assessment tools that I've got, they're absolutely incredible. The level of depth and the way that they come across things is not how you'd expect. So you might look at yourself and say, well, I'm very good at communicating and speaking. I'm maybe not quite so good at driving technical keyboards around the studio. But what these assessment tools do is they look at us in different ways. They look at us from a perspective of energies in ways that we hadn't sort of seen. And when you actually are able to grasp those, you see that even though we're unique individuals, we do fall into categories and types. And a lot of research has gone into what these categories and types are, and what roles are suited, what environments. And what I sort of found from these assessments is they can tell you so much. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your value to the team, your ideal work environment. Simple things, like whether you're introvert or extrovert. There are some things that would be just a job of dreams for one person, but a job of nightmare for others.
Yeah, one man's meat is another man's poison. Stay with us, Jonathan, because I want to find out a little bit more about making our CVs look as good as possible, and also for a chat on your new book, Feel Good, Change the World. Sounds great. So more career advice from Jonathan Blain coming up, but let's enjoy Donna Summer right now on BBC Radio Berkshire. Donna Summer, Love's Unkind on BBC Radio Berkshire. Good afternoon. My guest this hour is Jonathan Blain. He is giving us all career advice, and you would know this has been your field of expertise for many years. Is this what you chose to do when you came out of the Navy?
No, I've basically had quite a varied career. That I did 3.5 years in the Royal Navy. I then had 10 years in the Mobile Oil Corporation doing lots of different jobs, and then I've been self-employed business owner, entrepreneur, floated my company, been in the tech business, become a best-selling author, and it was really in 2007 and 8, where I sort of hit my career hit the rocks, found myself in a difficult situation, and really didn't know what to do, and that just led me on the journey of discovery. And I think all too often you've got to feel the pain,
yes,
to actually have that motivation to be able to empathise and understand with other people. And I was in a situation where being a chief executive of a publicly quoted company, being multi-millionaire, I'd become a best-selling author, written 12 books, got nearly $4 million of sales, and then suddenly I got no money, no income, I didn't know what to do. Wow. And I took this job as an executive level CV writer, and it was just like the last job that I ever wanted to do. But 500 CVs later, I just learned so much.
I'll bet you did. What is the perfect CV?
Well, I feel with CVs that the CV writing industry is crooked, and that everybody does very much the same thing. They get a template and they try and fill in their details to that template to make themselves look as good as possible. My feeling, being a sort of coming from a sales background, being a thought leader, is you've got to make your CV like employer-centric. So in other words, even though the CV is about you, you've got to write it from the perspective of the employer, and you've got to imagine, being on the X Factor, where you're auditioned, all these other people are lined up. Why you? Why should they hire you? And you've got to address that question, and then you apply marketing to it. And marketers have a mnemonic called AIDA, AIDA, and really what you need to do is catch their attention, which is the first A. I is get their interest. D is desire, and the last A is action. And really your CV needs to work like that. So you get a really big, strong headline, the single biggest reason why they should hire you right at the front. And then you look to have a strategy whereby the strategy is, on the one hand, you're trying to mirror what it is that they say they've wanted in their job description, so that when they look at it, they can see that you've got what they want. So in the skills section, you make sure that you put all the skills that they said they wanted. But then I think you've got to work out why, if you were them, why would you hire you rather than somebody else? And you've got to sell the difference. And you can only imagine and put yourself in the other person's shoes and try and be a little bit intelligent. But the truth is that two people will see a CV, one person will like it and others won't. And I feel that you need to make sure that it reflects you, and that people are hiring you for being you, not being some fake avatar of a you that isn't really you.
Yeah, it is tricky though, isn't it? I mean, as a journalist, I've been selling people stories for decades. When it came after the children and needing to go back to work, to selling myself, it's a real struggle, isn't it? I mean, you've got to be realistic, number one, but actually to be able to sell yourself well, it's not easy, is it?
Well, it's not easy at all. And I just think that when you're in that situation, you're coming in from a position of lacking confidence and self-doubt. And lack of self-confidence and self-doubt, they're like killers. Yeah. And what typically happens is we don't see the immense value that lies within all of us. We don't see our strengths. And also, we're modest when it comes to actually putting ourselves out there. So when I'm writing somebody's CV for them, typically I take them to the edge of their comfort zone where they go, oh, I can't really say that. But I just think, it's not a place to be sort of shy and withdrawn. You just need to be bold. Of course, it's a fine line, and you need to be able to back up what you say.
Now, you mentioned best-selling author was one of your many strings on your bow. So I'm holding this, what feels like a very new edition of your new book, Feel Good, Change the World. I mean, that says it all big, isn't it?
It is. Well, I'm incredibly proud of this book because it is literally the proof copy, so there are no other copies in existence.
Putting it down quickly.
No, you can hold it, but I'm very proud of this book, and actually I want to create a revolution in the world, because I feel that we're at a unique time in the history of humanity, and we need sort of new ideas and new thinking and new solutions. And if you like, you've got lots of problems compounding and we all need to come up with different ways to live our lives, manage our careers, and make the world a better place.
And when you say a revolution, do you mean that a revolution within each of us to be different about the way the world is changing?
Well, I feel that what's happened is we got to a certain point in time when things are creaking, where we're almost on the edge of crisis, economically, politically, socially, environmentally, and individually. And at an individual level, you've got a lot of people right on the edge financially, on the edge with stress, with health issues, struggling to just keep their head above water and existing rather than really living. And I think at that point where you're right on the edge, you really have to question things. And I think that what's happened is, if you look at the world as a whole, we've all got so busy, we're all fighting our own little struggles, that somehow we've lost touch of the bigger picture.
Yes.
And I just think that the bigger picture really involves each of us, that we look to like world leaders to go and sort out all the big problems, but I just feel that actually we all need to take charge of our own little worlds.
Is that because Donald Trump's one of those world leaders now? So, don't look to the world leaders anymore, sort it out yourself.
Well, I just feel that what's happened is we're suddenly in a system, in a way of operating that is not serving us or others, where the richest 1% are owning more than the other 99% of us put together. And we just really need a fundamental rethink. I mean, when I was young, I remember people talking about success. You know, you need to go to school, work hard, you know, get a job so that you can pay your bills and you can just survive. But then it's about success, a good job, and really that translates into money and a bigger house, and it's all about the money. And I just feel that paradigm has like fulfilled its sort of you know, its sell by date. And whilst we do need to survive, of course, I think it needs to be about happiness, fulfillment, and making a difference as the primary drivers of our lives.
I love the way you talk. Jonathan Blain, career expert there, geeing us all up. Don't survive, live.